Welcome. Thanks for joining me. I've just had a spell in the garage. Woohoo! Happy New Year to the garage. You don't know how good it feels to get my hand on some spanners. Do a few jobs in the garage. Brilliant. Day 2 of the Baitboat getting a new 4K camera. I've had the hull open and on my table beside me all yesterday and this morning, trying to solve the conundrum of how to mount the camera pointing through a hole in the hull. Now that sentence doesn't sit easily with me. A hole in the hull. The Baitboat, or should I call it a camera boat, would be used to go out in the lake at my favourite venue and film carp as the cruise and hopefully take surface bait. Now this occasion is usually a sunny day, very steady movement of the carp, nothing frantic. So the Baitboat isn't in a race to keep up. As long as it gets in the vicinity, its next role is to become obscure, so the carp become relaxed. The main purpose of the camera boat is obviously to take photos and get some unique shots of the carp as they feed. Now, it's natural to think you need to mount a camera on the Baitboat pointing forward, but bear in mind that it's going to come to a rest at some point. Why not make life easier mechanically and photo-wise to mount it on a flat surface at the stern of the boat. Between the propellers there's a flat surface. Being drawn to this easy solution, or easier solution, I've gone for that. And in the photos and video I took this morning, would see the drone mounted within the hull of the Baitboat, camera boat, pointing out backwards. So I took the plunge, drilled a hole in the rear of the Baitboat, just breaking the water line, which I found from previous trips on the lake, the scum that settled around the hull easily showed where the water line is with the weight distribution I had on that day. The drone is very light, and I mean very, very light, so I'm not really considering it as affecting the ballast or the balance on the boat. So, position the drone inside the hull facing backwards, piece of tape on the hull, mark the centre of where the lens was going to look, took the drone out and proceeded to drill a hole which had a tank cutter mounted large enough for the camera to see out of, but not too large, because there's no point in that. There's no sideways movement of the camera. And then it was a series of tests to see what the camera saw, what the limitations of mounting the camera looking backwards would be. I also had this piece of equipment. It's a dive case, or part of one, for a 360 camera. It never worked. I don't know what they were thinking of at DJI producing this, but I've now repurposed it to mount on the rear plate of the Baitboat stroke camera boat. This centre part is domed. I don't know what the tech is, but it seems like if it's a certain distance from the lens, it has a magnifying property. So what I plan to do is mount it almost horizontal on the hull, and I'm not sure whether I'm going inside the hull or outside the hull. I'll just create a watertight seal in whatever shape or form that this ends up. So what it does when I compare what the camera sees through that and through this part is this is a much clearer, almost a lens. So first approach, shoot through this with the limitations of having to crop it to take out any circle that appears around the image. But if the camera's close enough, you shouldn't see this black circle anyway. So that's where I am on day 2, progressing the mount steadily, because once you start ruining hulls of boats, you're in for a whole heap of problems. and the water ingress would be a no-no, because I'm going to mount a spare drone in that cavity, and I don't want that subject to water ingress. Thanks for joining me. Join me again soon.